I never imagined the day would come when my own son would look me in the eye and say, "Dad, you are not welcome here for Christmas." The words slammed into me like a fist inside the very house I had built with my sacrifices, a house glowing with Christmas lights I had paid for, and yet to them I was nothing more than an intruder. But here is where the story turns. I did not beg. I did not break. I smiled, walked out the door, and made a single phone call. By the time New Year's Day arrived, their mortgage had vanished, and so had their illusion of control. Because if you dare erase me from family, I will show you exactly what it looks like when justice comes home. Have you ever been cast aside by the very people you bled for? What would you have done in my place? Before we go on, do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We bring you new stories every single day. Hit like and tell us what city you are watching from in the comments. I could make my famous turkey this year, I said, settling deeper into Michael's leather couch, the one with the sage stuffing your mother used to love. Remember how she always said it was better than her grandmother's? The words hung in the warm air between us, mixing with the scent of Isabella's expensive vanilla candles. Michael shifted beside me, his wedding ring catching the light from their 12-foot Christmas tree. Something in his posture changed shoulders, pulling inward as though he was bracing for impact. "Dad, unfortunately, you will not be welcome here for Christmas." The words hit me like a physical blow. I blinked, certain I had misheard. "What do you mean? Why would I not be welcome?" Michael could not meet my eyes, his gaze fixed on the marble coffee table, the one I had helped him pick out last spring, when Isabella decided their old furniture was not sophisticated enough. "My parents are coming, and they would prefer if you are not here." My hands went cold. They would prefer. It is just easier this way, Dad. You know how her family is about traditions. They have their own way of doing things. His voice grew smaller with each word, like he was shrinking inside himself. I looked around the living room at the silk curtains I had paid for, when Isabella complained about privacy at the hardwood floors, funded by my second mortgage, at the crown moulding that had maxed out my credit card. Every inch of this house bore my fingerprints, my sacrifice, my love for my son. "Their own way," I repeated slowly. "And what way is that, Michael?" He flinched. "Dad, please do not make this harder than it has to be." Through the kitchen archway, I could see Isabella's new KitchenAid mixer, the professional grade one she had insisted on for her holiday baking phase, a phase that had lasted exactly 3 weeks. $2,000 of my money sitting there, probably used twice since October. Where will I spend Christmas then? The question slipped out quieter than I intended. Michael's face crumbled. "Maybe you could—" "I do not know. Maybe visit Aunt Rosa, or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. As though Christmas was just another appointment that could be rescheduled for convenience. I stood up my knees protesting after 8 long years of carrying this burden alone. "I see." "Dad, wait." But I was already moving toward the door past the family photos, where my face grew smaller and more distant in each frame, past the coat closet that held Isabella's 1,000 jackets. My hand found the doorknob, solid and cold beneath my palm. "Son," I said without turning around, "tell Isabella's parents, Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad." The December air hit my face like a slap as I walked toward my truck. Behind me, I heard Michael call my name once, then the soft click of the door closing. Final. Absolute. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, engine off, watching the Christmas lights twinkle in the windows of houses I would never again be welcome in. My phone buzzed, probably Michael wanting to smooth things over with empty promises and guilt. I did not answer. Instead, I turned the key and drove into the darkness, leaving behind the warm glow of the house I had bought, but would never belong in. The heater hummed against the December cold as I navigated the familiar streets toward home. South Hills sprawled around me, every neighborhood corner, holding memories of the man I used to be. The man who believed family meant everything. The man who would have given his last dollar just to see his son smile. That man was a fool. I stopped at the red light on 29th and Grand, watching a young father load Christmas presents into his SUV. His children pressed their faces against the window breath, fogging the glass with excitement. Once upon a time, that had been Michael and me. Before Isabella, before I became nothing more than a walk-in ATM with inconvenient emotions. The numbers started rolling through my head like a broken slot machine. $2,800 every month for 5 years. My calculator had given up trying to make sense of it last spring when I finally added up the total. $140,000. More money than Maria and I had saved for our entire retirement. Gone. Just gone. I pressed the accelerator harder than necessary as the light turned green. The truck responded with a growl that matched my mood. 5th Street. That was where I had refinanced my house. Our house, Maria's and mine, to cover their down payment. The loan officer had looked at me with pity I had not recognized at the time. Mr. Flores, are you sure about this? You are putting a lot at risk for someone else's investment, not my son's future, not my family's security, someone else's investment. Lincoln Street, the bank where I had taken out a second mortgage when Michael lost his job 2 years ago. Just temporary, Dad. Just until I get back on my feet. Isabella had stood behind him, a $700 purse slung over her shoulder, nodding sympathetically, while mentally calculating how much my desperation was worth. Nothing. As it turned out, my desperation was worth nothing to them. I pulled into my driveway, the one with the cracked concrete I could not afford to fix, because every spare dollar had disappeared into their perfect suburban fantasy. The porch light flickered another repair I had been putting off. Inside the house felt hollow, without Maria's laughter, without the warmth of family gatherings that would never happen again. My phone rang as I fumbled with my keys, the shrill tone echoing off the empty walls. Isabella's name flashed on the screen, probably wanting to explain why I was not good enough for her parents' delicate sensibilities. Perfect timing. I had been waiting 5 years to have this conversation. I answered on the 4th ring, letting her wait just long enough to wonder if I would pick up at all. Dennis. Isabella's voice dripped with false sweetness, the same tone she used when asking me to cover their water bill or their property taxes. I heard about the little misunderstanding with Michael. Misunderstanding, I leaned against my kitchen counter, still wearing my coat. I do not think there is any misunderstanding, Isabella. You made your position quite clear. Look, I know this seems harsh, but you have to understand my parents' perspective. They are very traditional people. They expect a certain atmosphere during the holidays. A certain atmosphere, I repeated. And what atmosphere is that? Pause. I could hear shopping bags rustling in the background, probably money that should have gone to their mortgage payment. Money that was apparently my responsibility. Well, they are not used to your kind of cooking. All that spicy Mexican food and loud music. And frankly, Dennis, they are educated people. They expect conversations about current events, literature, art, you know. The words struck harder than a physical blow. 8 years of biting my tongue, of swallowing insults for Michael's sake, of pretending not to notice the way she looked at me, as though I was some kind of hired help. My kind of cooking, my voice stayed, level controlled. You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 3 years when money was tight? The tamales you said reminded you of your grandmother. That was different. We were appreciative then. But now with my parents, now with your parents, you cannot have the Mexican peasant embarrassing you at your fancy dinner table. The false sweetness evaporated. Do not be dramatic, Dennis. This is not about race. It is about class. My father graduated summa cum laude from Washington State. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer in the Hamptons. What exactly would you contribute to dinner conversation? Stories about laying tile. Heat flooded my chest, but I kept my voice steady. I built a business from nothing after your husband's grandfather died. I have employed over 50 people. I have paid more in taxes than your father made in his best year. Money is not everything, Dennis. Breeding matters, education matters. And frankly, Maria understood her place better than you understand yours. The line went dead silent. She had crossed it. the line I had not even known existed until she stomped across it in her designer heels. What did you say about my wife? I am just saying. She knew how to blend in better. She did not make waves. She understood that some spaces were not meant for her. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. Maria had more class in her little finger than your entire bloodline will ever possess. Oh, please. She was a house cleaner who got lucky. At least she had the good sense to stay quiet about it. Isabella? My voice dropped to something I did not even recognize. I want you to listen very carefully. This conversation is over. We are done pretending to be family. You cannot just, we are done. I repeated the words and ended the call. I set the phone down carefully on the counter, my hands surprisingly steady. Around me, the kitchen felt different, smaller, but somehow cleaner, as if a weight had been lifted from the air itself. I walked to my desk in the corner and pulled out the manila folder I had been avoiding for months. Bank statements, mortgage papers, 5 years of automatic transfers that had bled me dry while they lived like royalty. Time to stop the bleeding. Part 4. The first decision, cancelling the mortgage. The documents spread across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. 5 years of bank statements, each one showing the same automatic transfer. $2,800 on the 15th of every month, vanishing from my account into theirs. A paper trail of my own stupidity. I pulled out my calculator and began adding. The first year, $33,600. The second year, another $33,600. By the third year, I had stopped buying myself new clothes. By the fourth year, I had started shopping at discount grocery stores. By the fifth year, I was eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch just to make ends meet. $143,400. Not counting the down payment. Not counting the times I had covered their utilities when Isabella's shopping addiction got out of hand. Not counting the new roof, the landscaping, the endless furniture that was essential for their lifestyle. I sat back in my chair, staring at the numbers until they blurred together. Maria's life insurance money, my retirement savings, the college fund we had started for grandchildren I would apparently never be allowed to see. All of it gone, poured into a house where I was not even welcome for Christmas dinner. I reached for my phone, scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for my bank. The automated system offered me options in English and Spanish. How thoughtful. How accommodating. To people like me. Customer service. This is Jennifer. How can I help you today? I need to cancel an automatic transfer. I said, my voice steadier than it had been in years. Certainly, sir. I will need your account number and some verification information. I rattled off the numbers listening as she typed in the background. Professional, efficient, no judgment about why a 62-year-old man was cancelling payments to what was probably his son's mortgage. I see the transfer you are referring to, Mr. Flores. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo. Account ending in 7423. How long have you been making this transfer? 5 years. The words tasted bitter. And you want to cancel it effective immediately. I looked around my kitchen at the outdated appliances I could not afford to replace, at the walls that needed painting, at the windows that leaked cold air, because I had spent my home improvement money on someone else's castle. Effective immediately, I confirmed. Done. The transfer has been cancelled. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I said, surprising myself with how good the word felt. No, that is everything. I hung up and sat in the sudden quiet of my house. Outside December, darkness was settling over Spokane. Christmas lights twinkled in windows where families gathered without conditions, without judgment, without the need to hide who they were. For the first time in 5 years, next month's budget would balance. For the first time since Maria died, I could afford to fix my porch, light buy, decent groceries, maybe even take a vacation. I gathered up the bank statements, the mortgage papers, all the evidence of my so-called generosity. Then I walked to my fireplace, struck a match, and watched 5 years of martyrdom turn to ash. The fire warmed my face, warmer than I had felt in years. My phone buzzed with a text message, probably Michael wanting to apologize, or Isabella needing money for something essential like new throw pillows. I did not check it. Instead, I poured myself a glass of the good whiskey, the bottle I had been saving for a special occasion that never seemed to come. Tonight felt special enough. I raised my glass to the empty room, to Maria's photo on the mantel, to the man I used to be, and to the man I was becoming. Merry Christmas to me, I said, and I meant it. Part 5. Isabella's Provocation. The next morning arrived crisp and clear. December sunlight streamed through my kitchen windows as I nursed my second cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I was not calculating how much money would disappear from my account in 3 days. The freedom tasted better than the Colombian blend I had finally allowed myself to buy. My phone rang at exactly 10:47 in the morning. Isabella's name flashed on the screen like a warning label. Dennis. Her voice carried that familiar tone of barely concealed impatience. I need you to pick up my parents from Spokane Airport. Their flight from Portland arrives at 2 o'clock. I set down my mug, carefully watching the steam curl toward the ceiling. Isabella, did you forget about our conversation yesterday? Look, whatever that was about, we need to focus on practical matters now. My parents need transportation, and you are the only one with time during the day. The audacity was breathtaking. Less than 24 hours after telling me I was not worthy of sharing Christmas dinner with her family, she expected me to serve as their personal chauffeur. And you are asking me because that is what family does, Dennis. They help each other. Her voice sharpened with irritation. Besides, let us be honest here. You are not my rival. You are too weak to be my rival, so just get in your truck and pick them up. There it was, the final insult wrapped in a command. What airline? I asked quietly. Alaska Air Flight 447. They will be at baggage claim Carousel 3. And Dennis, they are expecting someone who can handle their luggage properly. Do not embarrass us. I could hear her nails tapping against something hard. Probably her granite countertop, the one I had paid for when she decided laminate was not suitable for her dinner parties. Of course, I said. I will take care of everything. Good. And wear something decent. Maybe that blue shirt you wore to Michael's graduation. They noticed things like that. The line went dead. She had not even said thank you. I sat back in my chair, looking at my phone's blank screen. 2 o'clock. Flight 447. Baggage claim Carousel 3. I glanced at the wall clock above my sink. 10:52 in the morning, plenty of time. I poured myself another cup of coffee, added an extra spoonful of sugar, and opened yesterday's newspaper to the crossword puzzle I had not finished. 7 across. Delayed gratification, 12 letters. The answer would come to me eventually. Part 6. The Airport Trap. At 2:15 in the afternoon, I was settling into my favourite armchair with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and the Spokane Review's Sunday edition. The crossword from yesterday lay completed on my coffee table. Delayed gratification had been postponement. My phone buzzed against the wooden surface. Isabella's name again. I let it ring. The December sun slanted through my living room windows, warming the space where I had spent so many lonely evenings counting the cost of my generosity. Today the silence felt different. Earned. Intentional. 2:47 in the afternoon. The phone buzzed again. This time I could see the preview of her text. Dad, where are you? My parents are. I turned the phone face down and returned to the sports section. The Seahawks had lost again. Some things never changed. By 3:30, my phone had buzzed 6 times. I had finished the newspaper, brewed a second pot of tea, and started organising the junk drawer in my kitchen table. Amazing what you could accomplish when you were not rushing around serving people who considered you their personal bellhop. The 7th call came at 3:45. Instead of Isabella's name, I saw a known number, probably her parents borrowing someone's phone at the airport. I let that one ring too. Outside, a neighbour was hanging Christmas lights on his porch. His children ran wildly through the yard, fueled by that manic December energy that only afternoons before Christmas could bring. Normal families, doing normal things. No one stranded anywhere waiting for someone who would never come. 4:15 in the afternoon. My phone started ringing and did not stop. Isabella. Then the unknown number. Then Isabella again. The buzzing became constant, like an angry wasp trapped against glass. I walked to my kitchen, and unplugged my landline from the wall. Then I turned my cell phone completely off. Perfect silence. I made myself a grilled cheese sandwich and heated up a can of tomato soup comfort food I had not allowed myself in months, because every grocery dollar had gone toward making ends meet while subsidizing their lifestyle. The cheese melted perfectly golden, the soup steamed in my favorite mug. Outside, the winter sun was already starting to set, casting long shadows across my backyard. And somewhere across town, 3 people were probably standing in an airport parking garage, arguing about taxi fare and wondering how their personal servant had dared to strand them. The thought made my soup taste even better. By 5 o'clock in the evening, I had eaten dinner, loaded my dishwasher, and was considering what movie to watch. It had been years since I enjoyed an entire evening to myself, without worrying about emergency calls for money or last-minute favours. I was reaching for the remote when someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking. Pounding. The kind of aggressive hammering that rattled the frame and announced pure fury. I set down my tea and walked slowly toward the sound, already knowing exactly who I would find on the other side. The pounding intensified as I approached, each blow more violent than the last. Through the peephole, I saw 3 figures crowded on my small porch, like wolves circling prey. I opened the door to find Cody's red face inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted, pushing past me into my living room without invitation. We waited at that damned airport for over 3 hours. Catherine followed him, her usually perfect hair dishevelled, her lips pressed into a thin line of pure hatred. "This is completely unacceptable behaviour from someone your age, Dennis. Absolutely barbaric." Isabella brought up the rear. Her designer coat wrinkled, her makeup smeared. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what you have done? My parents had to take a $40 taxi because you decided get out of my house." My voice cut through their chorus of rage like a blade slice in silk. They stopped mid-rant, shocked by the steel in my tone. "Excuse me." Cody's face shifted from red to purple. "You do not get to make demands here, buddy. Not after what you pulled today. This is my house," I said quietly, not moving from my position by the door. "And I want you out. Now." Catherine stepped forward, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension she had perfected over decades of looking down on people like me. "Dennis, you clearly do not understand the magnitude of your mistake. My husband has connections throughout this city. Business connections, social connections. You cannot treat people like us this way and expect this was a lesson for you." I interrupted, meeting her gaze steadily. "A lesson about your excessive arrogance and your poor treatment of people you consider beneath you." Isabella's mouth fell open. "A lesson? Who do you think you are to teach anyone anything? You are nobody. You are I am someone who finally stopped being your personal bank account and your taxi service." I stepped aside and held the door open wider. "The lesson is over. You can leave." Cody jabbed a finger toward my chest, but did not quite dare touch me. "You have no idea who you are messing with, old man. I have been in this town longer than you have been breathing its air. I know people. Important people. People who can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" "It is a promise." His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "You think abandoning elderly people at an airport is something you can just do without consequences? You're about to learn exactly how wrong you are." Catherine nodded, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Indeed, actions have consequences. Dennis, and yours will be quite public." Isabella grabbed her father's arm. "Daddy, let us just go. This pathetic old man is not worth our time. If you have ever faced threats or humiliation from people who thought they were more powerful, comment number 1 below and share your story in the comments. Your voice might help someone else feel less alone." They filed out of my house like a defeated army, but Cody turned back at the threshold. "You will regret this," he said. "I guarantee it." I closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. Through the window, I watched them pile into their rental car, still arguing among themselves as they drove away into the December darkness. The house felt cleaner, with them gone, as if their presence had left a stain that was only now lifting. But their parting words echoed in the sudden quiet. Public consequences. Important people. Connections. I walked back to my living room and picked up my tea still warm in its mug. For the first time in this whole mess, I felt something that might have been concern, but it was overwhelmed by something much stronger, anticipation. 3 days later, I was enjoying my morning coffee and scanning the Spokane Review when I saw my own face staring back at me from page 3. The headline read, "Spokane Businessman Abandons Elderly Couple at Airport During Holiday Storm." My hands went still around the coffee mug. There I was in black and white, an old photo from my company's website, probably 5 years out of date. Below it, a story that made my blood run cold and my temper flare in equal measure. Cody and Catherine, visiting their daughter for Christmas, were left stranded at Spokane International Airport for over 4 hours on Sunday when family member Dennis failed to appear for a pre-arranged pickup. The couple, both in their late 50s, waited in frigid temperatures as a winter storm warning was issued for the region. Winter storm warning. It had been 52 degrees and sunny. "We could not believe someone would just abandon us like that," said Cody, a retired banking executive. "We called repeatedly, but Mr. Flores never answered his phone. We were forced to take an expensive taxi in dangerous weather conditions. At our age, this kind of treatment is not just inconsiderate, it is dangerous." The article continued with quotes about my so-called pattern of erratic behavior and concerns about my mental state. Cody had painted himself and Catherine as helpless victims, the targets of a cruel old man who had suddenly snapped without provocation. No mention of the Christmas dinner rejection, no context about Isabella's demands or their years of financial exploitation. Just me, the villain who abandoned poor elderly tourists during a blizzard that existed only in Cody's imagination. I set down my coffee and read the article again, slowly, then a third time. The byline belonged to Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor. I did not recognize the name, but I recognized the strategy. Cody had called in favors, used his banking connections to get this story placed exactly where it would do maximum damage to my reputation. Smart. Very smart. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt a grudging respect for my opponents. They were not just entitled trust fund babies throwing tantrums. They were strategic, calculating. They understood that in a small city like Spokane, reputation was everything. One well-placed newspaper article could destroy decades of hard work. They had declared total war. I folded the newspaper carefully and set it aside my mind, already shifting into the methodical planning mode that had built my business from nothing. This was no longer about airport pickups. This was no longer about Christmas dinner or mortgage payments. This was about winning. I pulled out my laptop and began typing names into search engines. Cody, Catherine, Isabella, their social media profiles, their connections, their habits, their weaknesses, everything they had foolishly made public over the years. If they wanted to play chess, I would show them what a real strategist looked like. I glanced at my wall calendar. December 18th. 7 days until Christmas. 7 days to plan something they would never forget. I spent the next 3 days living in a different world. Not the world where I was Dennis, the broken down old man who let his family walk all over him. This was the world where I was Dennis, businessman, strategic thinker, someone who had built something from nothing and was not about to let a bunch of entitled parasites destroy what I had spent 40 years to build. My laptop became command central. Social media profiles filled my browser tabs like playing cards in a high-stakes game. Cody, retired First National Bank manager, member of the Spokane Country Club, treasurer of the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association, a man who had spent his career in positions of trust and influence. A man with a lot to lose. Catherine's Instagram painted a perfect picture of refined living charity luncheons, wine tastings, vacation photos, from Coeur d'Alene tagged with trash like blessed life. Every post carefully curated to project success and sophistication. Comments from friends praising her elegant taste and inspiring lifestyle, all built on other people's money, including mine. Isabella's Facebook timeline told the real story. Posts about our beautiful home with photos of the kitchen I had paid for. Check-ins at expensive restaurants during the months when I had covered their utility bills. A status update from last week, so excited for Christmas dinner with family. Cannot wait to show off our hosting skills. Our hosting skills. our home, our success. The narcissism was breathtaking, but it was Michael's LinkedIn profile that gave me the final piece I needed. His recent activity showed a new connection. Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor at the Spokane Review, the same Patricia Morrison who had written the hatchet job about me. I leaned back in my desk chair, looking at the evidence spread across my screen. These people had made 3 critical mistakes. First, they had underestimated me completely. Second, they had gone public with their attack, which meant I could go public with my response. Third, they had documented their entire privileged lifestyle online, creating a perfect catalogue of hypocrisy. I clicked through to Patricia Morrison's profile, 43 years old, journalism degree from Washington State University, 15 years at local papers, no previous connection to banking or finance, which meant Cody had reached out cold, probably through someone he knew from his business network. A 5-minute search through local business directories confirmed my suspicion. 3 mutual connections between Cody and Patricia's editor. The story had not just appeared. It had been planted. Carefully, deliberately, amateur hour. I opened a new document and began typing. Not a response to their media attack. Something much better. A timeline. 5 years of financial support documented with bank statements, receipts and cancelled checks. The down payment for their house, $47,000 from my home equity loan. The kitchen renovation when Isabella decided granite countertops were essential, $18,000 from my credit card. 60 monthly mortgage payments of $2,800 each. $168,000 in counting. $250,000. More than I had spent on myself in the last decade. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I did not recognize. Probably Isabella trying a new angle. I ignored it and kept working. By evening, I had everything organized in a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Bank statements, receipts, photos downloaded from their social media showing off purchases I had funded. A printed copy of the newspaper article with my handwritten notes in the margins documenting each lie and distortion. I looked at my wall calendar. December 24th was circled in red not because it was Christmas, but because it was the perfect day for justice. According to Isabella's Facebook events, they were hosting Christmas dinner for 12 people, family, friends, neighbours, members of their social circle, the kind of people who read the Spokane Review and formed opinions based on what they saw there, the kind of people who deserved to know the truth. I closed my laptop and walked to my kitchen where I had left my good camera, the one I had bought years ago, to document job sites for my business. Time to put it to work, documenting something else entirely. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow Cody and his family were going to learn what happened when you declared war on someone who actually knew how to fight. Christmas Eve, morning dawned grey and cold, the kind of Spokane winter day that made you grateful for warm houses and family gatherings. Too bad I would not be welcome at either. But I had other plans. I laid out my evidence like a lawyer preparing for trial. Bank statements organised by year, each monthly payment highlighted in yellow. Receipts arranged chronologically showing the pattern of my support for their lifestyle. Photos printed from their social media, Isabella's new jewellery, their vacation photos, the expensive Christmas decorations currently adorning the house. I had helped them keep all of it, copied 12 times. One for each dinner guest. The newspaper article went on top of each stack, my red pen notes visible in the margins. Lie written next to Cody's quotes about dangerous weather, false. Beside the claim about my erratic behaviour missing context, highlighted where they had failed to mention 5 years of financial support. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the navy blue one I had worn to Maria's funeral, pressed and ready for another kind of farewell. Today I was saying goodbye to the man who had been a doormat for his family. Tonight I would be someone who commanded respect. At 6:30 in the evening, I loaded my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove to Kendall Yards. Their house glowed with warm light, cars filling the driveway and lining the street. Through the front windows, I could see figures moving around the dining room, Isabella playing hostess in the home my money had helped them buy. I parked across the street and checked my watch. 6:45. Perfect timing. Late enough that everyone would be seated for dinner. Early enough that they would still be on the main course. No easy escape for anyone. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Isabella loved to show off how safe their neighbourhood was, how they did not need to worry about security like people in rougher areas. I let myself in quietly, the warm air hitting my face along with the sounds of laughter and conversation from the dining room. And then Catherine said, "But darling, that is not how we do things in our family." Someone else laughed the sound sharp. Our family, after everything they had done to exclude me from it. I walked into the dining room carrying my briefcase. 12 faces turned toward me, expressions ranging from surprise to horror. Isabella froze her wineglass halfway to her lips. Michael's face went pale. Cody and Catherine looked as if they had seen a ghost. "Good evening, everyone," I said calmly, setting my briefcase on their marble sideboard. "I hope you do not mind me joining your Christmas celebration." Isabella found her voice first. "Dennis, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave immediately." "Actually," I said, opening my briefcase and pulling out the first stack of papers, "I think your guest deserves to know who really paid for this dinner, this house and this lifestyle you have been showing off." A woman I did not recognize, probably one of Catherine's charity friends, leaned forward with curiosity. "What is he talking about, Isabella? He is having some kind of episode," Isabella said quickly. "Michael, call someone." But I was already moving around the table, placing a packet of documents in front of each guest. "Here are the bank records," I said conversationally. 5 years of financial support, $168,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus the down payment, renovations, furniture, appliances, everything you see around you. The room went silent except for the rustling of papers as 12 people began examining the evidence. I watched their faces change as they absorbed the numbers, the dates, the undeniable proof of my generosity and their deception. "This is," one man started, then stopped staring at a bank statement. "Outrageous," finished the woman across from him. "Isabella, why did you not tell us any of this?" Isabella's perfect composure was cracking. "It is more complicated than it looks. Dennis volunteered to help us. We never asked." "Actually," I interrupted, pulling out the newspaper article. "Let us talk about what you did ask for and what you told the media about me." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I placed copies of the newspaper article on the table, watching as the dinner guest recognized my photo from the unflattering story that had run 3 days earlier. "Now," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence, "let us talk about the real manipulators in this family." Cody's face had gone from red to ashen. Catherine sat rigid in her chair, her wineglass forgotten in her hand. "Mr. Jenkins here used his banking connections to plant this story." I continued tapping the newspaper. "Notice how I am portrayed unstable and dangerous, abandoning poor elderly people in freezing weather." A grey-haired man in an expensive sweater looked up from the article. "Cody, what is this about?" "The weather was 52 degrees and sunny," I said, before Cody could answer. "And they were not stranded tourists. They were Isabella's parents, coming to the Christmas dinner. I had been banned from attending because I was not good enough for their company." Catherine finally found her voice. "That is not, we never said, you never said." "What, Catherine?" I pulled out my phone where I had screenshotted several of Isabella's social media posts. "That I was too low class for your parents. That my Mexican food and my working class conversation would embarrass you in front of your educated friends." The woman I had identified as one of Catherine's charity friends shifted uncomfortably. "Catherine, surely you did not." "He is twisting everything," Cody blustered, but his voice lacked conviction. "This man has serious mental health issues. The stress of aging, financial problems. I almost laughed. "Mr. Jenkins, I have been supporting your daughter and your son-in-law to the tune of nearly $3,000 a month for 5 years. The only financial problems here are the ones you're about to have." I turned to address the entire table. "These people have taken $200,000 from me, while calling me names behind my back. They manipulated my son against me, banned me from family gatherings, and when I finally stood up for myself, they tried to destroy my reputation in the newspaper." Michael spoke for the first time, his voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, I did not know about the newspaper." "Your wife knew," I said quietly, "and her parents orchestrated it. They turned me into a villain for refusing to be their personal ATM and their chauffeur." The social dynamic in the room was shifting like tectonic plates. I could see it in the guests' faces, the gradual realization that everything they had been told about tonight's generous host was built on lies. "This is unconscionable," said an elderly woman in pearls, staring at the bank statements. "Cody, how could you let your daughter take advantage of this man's generosity, then attack him publicly when he stopped enabling it?" Cody's carefully maintained facade was crumbling. "You do not understand the full situation." "I understand perfectly," the woman interrupted. "This man has been supporting your family financially while you treated him like hired help. And when he finally said no, you tried to ruin his reputation." Catherine's voice came out strangled. "He abandoned us at the airport. After you told me I was not welcome at Christmas dinner because my presence would be inappropriate for your parents," I said calmly. "After 5 years of paying their bills while you looked down on me for my ethnicity and education level." The silence was deafening. 12 people staring at Cody and Catherine with expressions ranging from disgust to embarrassment for having associated with them. Isabella made one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. "Everyone, please. This is a family matter that has gotten out of hand." "No," I said firmly. "This stopped being a family matter when you made it public. When you used the newspaper to attack my character, when you decided my reputation was acceptable collateral damage for your pride." I looked around the table at faces I did not recognize but who now knew exactly who I was. "I wanted you all to know the truth before you read about Dennis Flores in the paper again, because you will read about me again. But next time, it will be the real story." I closed my briefcase and straightened my tie. "Enjoy the rest of your dinner. It is the last one I will be paying for." As I walked toward the door, I could hear the eruption beginning behind me. Voices raised in accusation, questions demanding answers, the sound of a carefully constructed social facade falling apart. It was the most beautiful Christmas music I had ever heard. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, delivered by certified mail, with the weight of legal consequences behind every word. I signed for it at my front door, noting how the spring air smelled of new growth and possibility instead of the winter desperation that had marked those dark December days. Notice of default. The envelope read, "Final demand for payment." Inside 3 months of missed mortgage payments had caught up with Michael and Isabella like a tsunami of reality. $8,400 in arrears. 14 days to bring the account current or face foreclosure proceedings on the house I had helped them buy. I set the letter aside and returned to my coffee, reading it the way you would read news about distant weather. Interesting, but not my problem anymore. My phone had been ringing for weeks with increasingly desperate calls. Isabella's number blocked after the first hysterical voicemail. Cody and Catherine, whose social standing in Spokane had evaporated like morning mist after their Christmas dinner humiliation. Even Michael, whose calls I had been ignoring out of a mixture of anger and curiosity about how long it would take him to swallow his pride. The answer apparently was 97 days. He knocked on my door that Thursday evening, no longer the confident man who had excluded me from Christmas dinner, but someone who looked as though he had aged a decade in 3 months. Dark circles under his eyes, his expensive suit wrinkled the smell of desperation, clinging to him like cheap cologne. "Dad," he said when I opened the door, "we need to talk." I stepped aside to let him in, noting how he looked around my house like he was seeing it for the first time. The new furniture I had bought with my first mortgage-free paycheck, the fresh paint on walls that had not been updated in 8 years, because every spare dollar had gone to his lifestyle. The repairs I had finally been able to afford now that I was not subsidizing someone else's American dream. "Nice place," he said quietly. "It is what happens when you spend money on yourself instead of people who do not." "Appreciate it," I replied, settling into my new recliner. "Coffee?" He shook his head, perching on the edge of my couch like he was afraid to get comfortable. "Dad, I need you to know how sorry I am about everything. Christmas dinner, the newspaper article, the way Isabella, the way we treated you." "Go on." I did not know about Cody planting that story. I swear I did not. When I found out, he ran his hands through his hair. Jesus, Dad, the things they said about you behind your back, the way they talked about our family, about Mom's memory. My jaw tightened at the mention of Maria, but I kept my voice level. And what exactly did they say about your mother? That she knew her place better than you knew yours. That she understood boundaries. He could not meet my eyes. I should have defended you. I should have stood up to them years ago. Yes, I said simply, you should have. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of 5 years of mistakes filling the space between us. Outside, I could hear my neighbour mowing his lawn. The normal sounds of a normal Thursday evening in a normal neighbourhood where sons did not exclude their fathers from Christmas dinner. The house is in foreclosure, Michael said finally. I know. We cannot make the payments without he stopped seeming to realise how that sounded. Without my help, I finished. Without the money I was sending every month, while you let your wife's family treat me like garbage. I know how it looks, Michael. I leaned forward, making sure he was looking at me. Do you know how much money I sent you over 5 years? He nodded, miserably. Isabella calculated it after Christmas. The mortgage payments, the down payment, everything else. Over $200,000. $237,468, I corrected. I know the exact amount because I finally did something I should have done years ago. I added it up. His face crumpled. Dad, I am so sorry. I do not know how to fix this. You cannot fix it, son. That money is gone. But more importantly, those years are gone. 5 years when I could have been building a relationship with you instead of funding your wife's fantasy life. I know that now. He looked up at me with something that might have been hope, but maybe we could start over. Maybe there is a way to... Are you asking me to resume the mortgage payments? The hope died in his eyes. We are going to lose everything, Dad. The house, Isabella's respect for me, her parents' approval. I do not know what I will do. You will figure it out, I said, not unkindly. The same way I figured out how to live without a son who respected me. The same way I learned to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them. He started to cry, then quietly, like a man who had run out of other options. I lost you, did I not? I chose them over you, and now I have lost you forever. I watched him for a long moment. This man I had raised and loved and sacrificed, for who had let his wife's family convince him that his father was not good enough for their company. Michael, I said finally, you did not lose me. You gave me away. There is a difference. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Is there any chance anyway you could forgive me? I forgave you months ago, I said, and I meant it. But forgiveness does not mean going back to the way things were. It does not mean pretending this never happened. And it certainly does not mean I am going to resume paying for a lifestyle that came with the condition that I should be grateful for scraps of your attention. Then what does it mean? I stood up and walked to my mantel where Maria's photo sat next to a new picture me, with Rosa and her family at Easter dinner. The first holiday I had spent with people who actually wanted me there. It means that if you want a relationship with me, you will have to build it from scratch. It means showing me respect instead of demanding I earn it. It means making choices based on what is right, not what is convenient. I turned back to him. And it means that the next time someone, your wife, her parents, anyone tries to exclude me from family gatherings, you will remember who actually acts like family. He nodded slowly, understanding perhaps for the very first time that respect was not something you could take for granted. The house, he asked quietly, is not my problem anymore. I sat back down, feeling lighter than I had in years. You are a grown man, Michael. Figure it out like grown men do. Get a job that pays enough to cover your bills. Sell the house and buy something you can afford. Stop living beyond your means and expecting other people to subsidize your choices. He stood up slowly, his shoulders straight for the first time since he had arrived. You are right about all of it. I know. He walked to the door, then turned back. Dad, for what it is worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas dinner, I was proud of you. Embarrassed and angry, but proud too. Good, I said. Maybe there is hope for you yet. After he left, I poured myself a glass of the good whiskey and stepped onto my back porch. Spring was coming to Spokane. The trees were beginning to bud, the air warming with promise. In 4 months, I would be 63. Maria had been gone for 8 years, and I had wasted 5 of those years being a doormat for people who never truly appreciated sacrifice. I was not planning to waste any more. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. Dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school projects. I smiled and typed back, would not miss it. Real family, I realized, was something you found with people who actually wanted you there. Everything else was just expensive theatre, and I was finished buying tickets to shows where I was never welcome on stage. The whiskey tasted like freedom, and the future looked exactly as bright as I was willing to make it. And in that quiet moment, I understood my lesson. That respect cannot be begged for. That love without appreciation is not love at all. And that sometimes the greatest act of strength is simply refusing to be used. I had lost years, but I had gained clarity. I had regained myself. Now I want to ask you, have you ever sacrificed too much for people who never valued you? Share your thoughts, your stories, your own turning points in the comments below. I truly want to hear from you. And if this story spoke to you, do not forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, subscribe to the channel, and press the notification bell so you will not miss the next story. At the end, leave just 3 simple words in the comments. I choose freedom. Because that is what this is really about, freedom rebirth, and learning to value yourself before anyone else can. We will meet again in the next video. Thank you truly for being here with me. Until then, take care and remember your worth.